Dead Bride is a pretty decent film. This was released in 2022. It's directed and written by Francesco Picone. I apologise if I've mispronounced that. And we have a cast including Jennifer Mischiati, Christoph Hülsen, David White, Douglas Dean, and various others. And again, I apologise if I've mispronounced any of those names. The narrative is relatively well written. The suspense is brilliant. The acting is a little wooden, but not enough to put me off of the film. It's about a couple who move to Alyson, part of the couple, of course, to her childhood home, to her father's house because her father died, but she hadn't lived with her father in a long time. And she inherits the house after his passing. And there are some strange and suspenseful things happening. And Alyson is alone a lot of the time because Richard has to go away. Well, she has her baby there, but she's alone in terms of being the only adult there, and very dark things begin to happen. It's not the scariest horror film, but there were definitely some quite suspenseful moments that really did affect me. And as I've mentioned before, and I know a lot of other horror fans can relate, the more horror you watch, the harder it is to get scared. So if something makes me feel some chills, that to me is a good sign, at least in terms of the horror aspect. But as I said, I think the narrative itself is very well written as well. It's not overly complicated, but there is enough substance to it. The characters are reasonably well written. They're maybe not the most fascinating characters, but they are decent enough. And I think Alyson had an interesting backstory. So that was very well written for the character as well. And in general, I thought it was a pleasant enough experience. As a one-time watch, I thought Dead Bride was a decent horror with an interesting enough narrative, a nice amount of suspense, and a couple of moments that did not make me terrified, but certainly make me jump a little bit here and there. So that's all I wanted from it, and that's exactly what I got. It delivered. I'm quite happy. If you're looking for a horror film that's a decent amount of suspense, but not overly complicated to watch, yes, the narrative is well written, but there are not so many twists and turns that it's hard to keep up with. And I say that because there are so many horror films, or maybe I've just seen a good chunk of them, where we have a creepy house, things are happening within the walls of the house, and so many times they'll overcomplicate the backstory, or they'll make the thing that's causing this possession or whatever it is to be so complex that it just overshadows the actual horror aspect. They try to make it a gripping narrative and they forget about the horror aspect. And actually we have the reverse here. The narrative is detailed but not overly complex, and the horror aspect works quite well. So this is actually a decent film in that regard. So in general, apart from some wooden acting, I don't really have any issues with this. I think Dead Bride is a decent film, relatively easy to watch, pretty scary, not terrifying, but it has its moments. And if that's the kind of film you're looking for, I'd say it's worth checking out. Dead Bride is an interesting enough film. I enjoyed the experience, and needless to say, I'm quite happy to recommend it.